Madhava Kunja Bihari. So, this fine morning looks like we're reading from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is entitled, if I remember correctly, Status Quo. And we're in chapter 31. The movements of the living entities, text 2. Kalalam eka-rātreṇa pañca-rātreṇa budbudam daśa-ahena tu karkandhūḥ peśy aṇḍaṁ tataḥ param kalalam eka-rātreṇa pañca-rātreṇa budbudam daśa-ahena tu karkandhūḥ peśy aṇḍaṁ tataḥ param. No, light. No, it's okay. Ladies. Kalalam. Mixing of the sperm and ovum. To then. Eka-rātreṇa. On the first night. pañca-rātreṇa, by the fifth night, budbudam, a bubble, daśa-ahena, in 10 days, to then, karkandhūḥ, like a plum, peśy, a lump of flesh, aṇḍaṁ, an egg, or tataḥ, thence, param, afterwards. Translation. On the first night, the sperm and ovum mix, and on the fifth night, the mixture ferments into a bubble. On the 10th night, it develops into a form like a plum, and after that, it gradually turns into a lump of flesh or an egg, as the case may be. Purport. The body of the soul develops in 4 different ways according to its different sources. One kind of body, that of the trees and plants, sprouts from the earth. The second kind of body grows from perspiration, as with flies, germs, and bugs. The third kind of body develops from eggs, and the fourth develops from an embryo. This verse indicates that after emulsification of the ovum and sperm, the body gradually develops either into a lump of flesh or into an egg, as the case may be. In the case of birds, it develops into an egg, and in the case of animals and human beings, it develops into a lump of flesh. What to say about this? Om ajnana-timirandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai shri gurave namah vancha-kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya-eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Brief intro, and then I'll make 2 relatively quick points. I haven't been here in a while, and I don't know why. I mean, I lecture every day, almost every day, every week, every month, year after year. And now I feel nervous. Bizarre. I know why. Even last night, I mean, I was so thrilled to return here after a long time. It took me a while to fall asleep. And now I feel like a child who's been taught a couple of tricks by the father. And now is supposed to show some of those tricks before the father. That's how I feel about many of you here. As I was a little baby learning to walk, and now I try to teach others how to walk. 2 points about this verse today. I mean, at first, nothing spectacular. Just people taking birth, the process of creation of a body of a human being. But if we go just a verse before, then what we will find that this is not just a baby taking birth. As a matter of fact, what we're witnessing is a miracle of life. What we're witnessing is God's reality, divine life. If you remember the previous verse, I actually memorized it a million years ago. It was one of the first verses from the Bhagavatam I memorized. Karmana daiva-netrena. That's the beginning of this chapter. First, this is not happening just randomly. It's not a pointless interaction of chemicals or material particles. But first term here is karma. That means that someone has deserved the destiny being placed into a womb. Karmana. So by karma, something is happening here. That means it's not an empty universe. You know, karma means there are moral values involved. That means that someone has done something good or someone has done something bad. And as in most cases, everyone does a mixture of both. And therefore there is karma as a result to our moral life, or shall we say lack of our moral life. So karma, it's not an ordinary event. This is an extraordinary event. And says daśa-ahena. And this is all taking place under the jurisdiction, under the watchful eye of the Supreme Lord. Divine eye. Karmana, daiva literally means divine. Daśa-ahena, in front of the divine eyes, God's eyes. So what's happening here, even though you might be looking at the world, and it may appear to you as a, as a dull, as a friend of mine said, a devotee, unfortunately. I said, what is this repetition all day, every day, single day? It seems like, just a mundane, boring life. It's not mundane, it's not it only appears to you because you don't have the vision that the Bhagavatam is creating. So what's Bhagavatam doing, time and time again, is giving us this cosmic vision of valuable existence. And then when you lose this out of sight, then the life is not valuable anymore. It's not interesting. There's nothing divine about it. It becomes just a, ordinary, boring life. But life, existence, reality is extraordinary. And even the fact that someone is taking birth, person's taking birth for a reason. This whole world has a reason. There is a reason behind this world. There's meaning to it. Therefore, there is value. I don't know if you ever heard of the phenomenon known as synchronicity. Yeah, and it was popularized, and I don't know, maybe even discovered by Carl Gustav Jung, the famous psychologist. And of course, what the idea of synchronicity degenerated into is just laughable, but there's something really interesting about synchronicity. Synchronicity refers to something being synchronized. In other words, an event takes place, and it takes place in such a way that in that event you recognize tremendous value, and you're like, wow. And then you realize that it's not just a random event, but it is synchronized, and it's pointing to you a meaning in this world. And I'll give you an example of synchronicity. I was just telling this example 2 weeks ago when I was in San Diego. First, when I went down to San Diego, which was also maybe a divine will, Hare Krishna, when I remember the journey. Anyhow, I went down there. I was a brahmachari. There were no other brahmacharis, and I was thinking that's not good, there should be more brahmacharis around. And then the first person I spotted was Bhakti Alan. Alan was a fellow who worked as a nurse and lived across the street, and he was single. And I was like, there you go, perfect candidate. And so I made it a point to spend a lot of time with Bhakti Alan, and every moment I could I would spend with him, and I tried to do, the oldest trick in the book. This world, doesn't work. This is material life. None of it is good, Brahmachari life, that's really good. So, and I worked on Bhakti Alan, and I worked on him. Bhakti Alan became my project. And then, to my surprise, one day we were taking lunch prasadam at his place, and again, he lived just across the street from the temple. And Bhakti Alan tells me, you know what, I really don't like my job. And I'm thinking, oh, something good's coming up. And you know what, if I didn't have these two cats, I would quit my job and become a brahmachari. And I was like, oof, almost. And then a few days later, Bhakti Alan's calling me and he says, you know, Mahat Tattva, my brahmachari name, Mahat, you know what? My cats died. He says, I didn't do it. I thought he'd be thinking that I've done it. So no way, man. I'm not like that. I mean, I'd like to become a brahmachari, but I wouldn't do that. And he said that, yeah, I think God wants me to be a brahmachari. I was like, excellent. So in that, I mean, cats die. I mean, cats take birth and die every day. Maybe every moment. But when these two cats died, to him God spoke. Now, I wonder if I should tell you, I have another really extreme example. I'll tell it maybe at the end if there is more time. Like really extreme example of synchronicity. So cats die all the time, but this time it happened in such a way, things were so synchronized that Bhakti Alan in it saw meaning, even saw a message from God. But what Krishna consciousness is teaching us that life is not random. I mean, the whole existence is a message from God. The way things happen, when there is peace, it's a message from God. When there is war, there is a message from God. Like, the whole thing is not just merely random. So for one who lives the life of Krishna consciousness, that's a person who lives a very interesting life. That's a person who has tapped, we could say, we could say that's a person who has tapped into divine reality. So, I mean, we've said it many times, and I really don't want to make it sound like something we have unnecessarily said many times, but it is, you know. We owe a lot to Srila Prabhupada. You know, that's a person who has come to our part of the world to tell us that life is not mundane, that there is divine importance to existence, and you could live a divine life. Of course, you could be ignorant of the divine life, and by that, yawning so hard, and by that, reduce life to ordinary life, and a life of mere, and when I say mere materialism, I don't mean just like materialism in a sense that now we're going to live like pigs, you know, but when I say materialism, I mean reducing the whole reality to mere material particles, where you say there is nothing but matter in existence. And then that's what you sign up for when you become a materialist. And like mode of passion, it always initially looks very interesting and attractive, but what's really taking you into is an empty world. Empty world which initially may seem like very attractive. I mean, even devotees can sometimes hallucinate. How many times I heard, my soulmate, you know, there's some passion between two people. My soulmate, tinkling. You know, and then 2 years later, they're not soulmates anymore. You know what a soulmate is? That's a person that's your mate forever. You know, ever means no end. No beginning, no end. Forever. You know, 2 years later, I made a mistake. Yeah, I was telling you. So, but that's the mode of passion, and then initially looks very attractive, but what's really leading you into is an ordinary world. That initially may be attractive and whatnot, interesting, maybe even fun, but really it's a step towards the reduction. The reduction that will reduce life to nothing, to mere material particles with no value. So what Srila Prabhupada gave us is Krishna consciousness, is an opportunity to see divinity in existence, and then therefore try to live divine existence. And I mean, just before coming, I came here from Portland, Oregon, and there, for God's sake, I met a person who I introduced to Krishna consciousness here in LA in 1999, 25 years ago. And Lester, Bhakti Lester. I have a picture of him, I'll show it to you. We did, selfie. And it was, at the time I thought, and I really tried to make him interested in Krishna consciousness, and as always, because I was a brahmachari, that was my priority. Let's convince him to be a brahmachari like that. But he sort of failed, And then 25 years later, I meet him in Portland, Oregon. I entered a house where I was supposed to give a talk at a home program, and I see a familiar face. And at first I thought, yeah, from one of my previous visits to Portland. Recognized his smile and everything. And then later on, when he approached me, I could tell, no, I know you from somewhere else. And then he told me, I was like, wow, yes, I remember. But in the meanwhile, he's been telling his now wife, how 25 years ago, however many years ago was that, when he was telling his now wife, at the time girlfriend, about Krishna consciousness and how he met this wonderful devotee. Take that with a grain of salt. He met this wonderful devotee, and he was telling this girlfriend of his about Krishna consciousness. By the way, he told me he brought his girlfriend here to New Dwarka temple, and when she saw Rukmini Dwarkadish, and she was a Buddhist at the time, he told her, I'd like to show you Buddha. What a line. Her words, not insane, she didn't take any drugs, she was here in front of Rukmini Dwarka crying, she couldn't stop crying, like what an experience. I have also had such experiences. I remember one person who I gave Mahaprasadam to, and then born again Christian, wouldn't take any prasadam, nothing, and then I said, well, you should at least take some water, because, we're like that. You have to take something. This is part of our culture. I don't take anything that's offered to the devil. That was her concept, right? So I said, well, take some water. And that was the water we used to wash shilas. So she drank some of that water, and then the next day she came. She says, what did you give me? The whole night I was dreaming Krishna. Excellent. Bhakti Lester brought his girlfriend at the time here, and she was crying. She had like an amazing experience, and anyhow, she got interested in Krishna consciousness. But he was telling her about Krishna consciousness through the kindness he experienced through me. I don't consider myself very kind of a person, and those who know me closely know that there are multiple sides to this persona. Some or other, I guess I managed to be on my best behavior when I met Lester. And under that impression, that impression changed his life, and then in turn changed her life. And now they're coming before me and telling me all of this. It is extremely satisfying. Extremely satisfying. But you see, at the time when I was talking to Bhakti Lester, I wasn't thinking this is history in the making. But what Krishna consciousness is telling us that, man, you know, what you do in Krishna consciousness, it's history in the making. For me, it was just an ordinary event. But now, 25 years later, man, I see that was an extraordinary event. When do you usually end the class? By 8:15, right? Oh, okay. All right. I was really trying to make it really brief. Yeah, I have another example here from LA because now I'm here. So I also met a person and was really, I mean, at the time I wasn't thinking this is anything special, and but I was trying really hard to interest this person in Krishna consciousness, and this person even lived here with us for a while in the ashram and so on, and then left, and it was quite a battle to get this person to take up Krishna consciousness, and then took off, you know, and I felt bad, and also because I was a certified fruitive worker. When that project failed, I kind of felt bad. But then again, you know, it's been now 10 years, you know, since I took sannyas. After I took sannyas, this person from out of nowhere, you know, reached out to me and sent me this very long message, which again, you know, which enriched my life, which definitely takes my life to another level. I'll read you just a few sentences from that otherwise lengthy message. It says, you know, just a few years ago, and it was more than few, you know, just a few years ago, many things did make sense to me about life and Krishna consciousness. But after being exposed to this world, this person is now speaking about the time when this person left. I left Krishna consciousness. I don't want to say, because typically we have this tendency to think when someone has left an institution, has left Krishna consciousness. Not like that, but just. I mean, this person went to check out the life of materialism, you know, that's what it was. And then this person says, if I was to give an advice, looking back now at the life past, if I was to give an advice coming from someone who has seen both worlds, I would say that what you got, she's speaking about me, what you got in front of you has so much more value than anything this world could ever offer. I mean, isn't this a wonderful thing to hear from someone who has tasted both worlds? Says, you know what you have, and because sometimes we forget, you know, you lose out of sight. That's sort of a covering of illusion. You know, you don't see the value of a life you're living. But the person who's next to you says, oh man, you have an awesome life. I wish to go back, and she did go back. What you got in front of you has so much more value than anything this world could ever offer. I know that you know it already, but practically speaking, There is nothing out there worth even noting. Past 16 years flew by so fast, and another 16 or more will go by as quickly. I can testify to that. I mean, I left the States just to, do a mission, and then 8 years went by. Where did 8 years go? Between the two of us, you have spent the time preaching and working on purifying your heart, where I've done the opposite. For at least half of it, I gained nothing but affirmation of what I already knew. I think this ashram, because I took sannyas, so she's speaking about the sannyas. I think this ashram is perfect for you because you see how tasteless things are in the world. It is the truth, and unfortunately, I got first-hand experience of that. It is so dry and tasteless. Being trapped in it and being aware of it is a horrible condition. Please say a prayer for me that I never ever forget my spiritual master. This is Bhakta Lester. Briguji. Brigu. This is Lester. I don't know if you remember. Taken a few days ago. Om Tat Sat. Any questions or comments? This was an on-time delivery. Yes. Yes.
He mentioned that after the soul is placed within the material, it either becomes an egg, an embryo, or he said in the case of, what was it? He said bugs, germs, or insects, perspiration. And I was wondering if you had any insight into how that was on par with an egg or an embryo, because that always bewilders me. How it's.
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, the interesting thing is, and it's one of the reasons why I memorized the verse before, karmana daiva netrena jantu deha upapade striya pravisha udaram pumsarena kana ashra. Kana means a drop of semen. That the soul is placed into the drop of semen and then injected into the womb of mother, and then life develops like that.
Right. So it's no more inconceivable than that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, just a slight detail, because like you, I also have a bit of a mathematical and analytical mind, and tend to give such lectures, and I thought, okay, today I'll make a little difference. I won't bother the audience with technicalities. And but what's interesting there to me is that I always thought when the sperm and the embryo, right, when they come in contact, then the soul enters. But here it's stated that the soul enters the semen. Mm. And so, like, goes into the father's body, and then it's injected into the mother's body, and there a body develops. I mean,
it's pretty far out. Would a simple definition of synchronicity be things happen for a reason? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Synchronicity. So Jung was a very interesting fellow, because, by the way, for the good number of years of his professional life, people around Jung thought he was nuts, that he lost these marbles, but he proved them wrong. So here you have a person who's working, living, and functioning within an academic community, a community that's very rigorous when it comes to mere belief. You know, they really require hard proofs. And Jung was this person who was open to all kinds of crazy things. Crazier the better, like he'd be really attracted to it. But then he would look into things. And by the way, Jung was the first psychologist in the history of psychology to successfully heal patients. Before him it was just a bunch of theories, but he was the one who actually had, and because he had success, therefore his theories started to be very popular and absolutely overtook Freud, who was his initial friend and sort of teacher. And so in that environment, you had this, you know, person who was into religion, you know, into metaphysics, unusual things. I mean, he traveled all over the world. I mean, he gave quite a bit of attention to Vedas, and their lectures he gave on yoga, Upanishads. I mean, last year I spent a good amount of time studying Jung, so it's in my mind. And so he noticed that primitive tribes, different cultures and civilizations, so-called primitive, that there's in that primitiveness or primitivity, that there is something really really sophisticated. And that's where he started to notice what he calls synchronicity. You know, that there are events, that events are not just random, but there is meaning to them. And the moment you recognize the meaning, you have an aha moment, you know, and it just dawns you like. And it was also looking into rituals, how people do rituals in order to discern a meaning, you know. To discern what God wants from us, and so on. And typically you would think those people are just, you know, brain-dead primitives, you know, who just have no other way of controlling reality, so they try to control it by invoking God like that. But Jung was one of those people who gave some credibility to it, like that.
Did he have an out-of-body experience?
I can't recall. I mean, I don't know, yeah.
In that book we used to distribute, Beyond Illusion and Doubt.
Uh-huh.
It was a particular thing.
Uh-huh.
And he was saying that one regret he had was that he wished he had a guru.
Wish he had?
A guru.
A guru, okay.
And Prabhupada commented upon that, saying, it's right, he needed.
Yeah. He had some like really good insights into religion. Like, the fellow left a good impression on me, like deep impression, not just emotional impression, but
he was a seeker.
Oh,
but
yeah.
He didn't have a guru.
Yeah.
In his next life, hopefully.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot who was next. Satchitananda, I guess. Yeah.
Prabhu, I have a reflection from your class, the examples that you were giving, and I remember that Srila Prabhupada mentions that while we're practicing spiritual life, devotees should always remember their past lives. Where are you coming from? So, in the statement that this particular devotee was making, that he remembered the good things, and now he's in the other side, we can see also that maybe you can speak about that. How Maya is so strong that although you realize that, you cannot make a step back. Would you like to say something? Why is it?
Yeah, I always remember that example of a person hugging a tree and saying, "Let me go, let me go." So that's sort of our position in this world. And recently I gave a lecture, and I was looking up relevant things Prabhupada said on the topic, and on some walk, a devotee was asking Prabhupada, who's the greatest enemy? Who's the greatest enemy? And then Prabhupada said, he couldn't understand him. enemy, who's the greatest enemy? Prabhupada said, devotee himself. And he said, quit being a rascal. Prabhupada loved that term. Said there are no enemies. And by the way, we could really substantiate that with philosophy of the Bhagavatam. Like right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, we have Dharma, the bull. Remember the first canto, Dharma, the bull, the cow and the bull, and they were being beaten by Shudra, who was dressed as a king, and dark, menacing person, and horrible fella. And when King Parishit comes onto the scene and wants to administer the justice, he asks the bull, even though it's quite clear what happened there, because the guy's holding a bat, that's bloody, and here we have a bull with broken legs, and he asks the bull, who's done this to you? And the bull says, it's difficult to say. And it says, there are always immediate causes and remote causes, like that. And so, we may, immediately blame this, that, and the other thing, but at the end, it is the soul that desires so. And another Prabhupada's example is the tail of a dog. You try to keep it straight, and as long as you're holding it, it's straight. The moment you let go, curls up. And so we all have that experience, and the reason is that hardly anyone wants to be a devotee. Most of people who are trying to be devotees want to be devotees, and because the moment you want to be devotee, you are. That's the very definition of being a devotee, that just your being is wanting it, and you're a devotee. And so most of us are projects like that, and as projects we're trying to make the journey from wanting to want to be devotee to want to be devotee. And which means our default position is that of ignorance. Tendency is not to experience the world as divine reality. Difficult to see God's plan, difficult to see your place in it. But I mean, Bhagavatam is full of statements that literally make your life divine. Like, for example, Bhagavatam says you should never mess with your swadharma. And swadharma does not refer precisely to your spiritual nature, but to the essential nature that you have acquired through the body. Like a man, woman, child, brahmana, kshatriya, whatnot, And don't change that. Don't mess with that. And if you live the life of swadharma, right there you will experience tremendous harmony. And then you add service to Krishna, and you have an amazing life. I mean, life is pretty amazing. By the way, don't throw rocks at me for saying this, but life can be pretty amazing even without Krishna. That's in the Bhagavad Gita. Because this is God who's not envious. You can live a good life even without God, but nowhere as good as with God. Like if you just live a life that's natural, that's suitable to who you are, I mean, you'll already be pretty happy. And then if you add service to Krishna, then the whole thing takes an amazing divine dimension, So just in these two steps,
What's the reason why you don't want to mess with your swadharma?
The reason why one should not mess with swadharma is because swadharma is something which is not necessarily permanent, but almost. Like it's long-lasting and it cannot be changed. And I mean, actually, it could be changed, but at a great risk and with great trouble. And so, dharma Dharma is something which is natural, and that's natural to you. And if you mess with it, it can just like spring back and hurt you. By Krishna, yeah. Karmana daiva-netrena, yeah. So, I mean, like for example, Bhagavad Gita, example of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna chose Arjuna to do the battle because he was a kshatriya. He didn't choose a Brahman and tell him, go quickly become a kshatriya so you can, beat these people up here. Like that. Is that okay?
That's good.
Okay.
Is that the reason why Srila Prabhupada emphasizes, you see, in all his books, mostly, like in other people, they go to the rasas and things like that, but actually he really tackles the material existence, the way this universe works, the way this body works, and it may appear to be like repetition in every page that you go.
You know what? We're stuck with Prabhupada. Some may not like it, but one thing is pretty obvious. I don't know if any one of you listened to all of Prabhupada's lectures. There's no Leela. Look, don't kill me. I'm not putting any value to it. Like super little. Lecture on the Radhashtami, Dehinos Minyata, they like mentioned Srimati Radha at the beginning, 2 sentences, and then you're not the body, and so on. Not because that's basic. I mean, it is basic, but what's basic is not basic in the sense that it's cheap. And we had a history of our, parallel fellows, who used to come here. I remember bunch of incidences here. Oh, you're just basic devotees, you don't, like Dehinos, we know rasa and whatnot. I'm sorry, but those people are not, I don't think, I have serious doubt that they have experience of a divine existence. I mean, from psychology, schizophrenia is a phenomenon when a person separates from reality, typically induced by painful experience. Experience so painful, and then the person, these are automated processes, the person cuts the tie with reality and he lives in an imaginary world. That's schizophrenia. Mild form of schizophrenia is religion for a lot of people. Leela, Vrindavan, these people are living in an imaginary world. If you're really honest, if you open Prabhupada's books and with utter honesty read this, you don't say it's true, yeah man, awesome. As soon as someone tells me that, I know they're not serious. Every question that's answered, that answer that you got initiates further questions, doubts and whatnot. That's how you grow in spiritual life, in Krishna consciousness. And so, this is my experience. What Prabhupada was saying, like basic things are not, oh man, there's nothing basic about it. And then when you mature, then when you hear Leela, then that's something else. Otherwise, it's just a perverted reflection. Like Prabhupada gave that story of a person who was hearing Vaishnava speak Krishna Katha, and every time we would hear the word Radha, he would cry. Why are you crying? Oh, I'm remembering my goat, which I named Radha. And then devotees have a tendency also say, yeah, you just say Krishna, you do unlimited benefit, you just plant yourself, go to Vrindavan, pay obeisances, you come out self-realized. Not true. There's some benefit to it. But that's nowhere as close to as coming to the point of transformation. That's when you want to transform. And you cannot want until something is so obviously true to you that has converted you. And there is a section, there's in the Bhagavatam example, Nala Kuvara Manigriva, swimming in Ganga. Do you remember what they were doing in Ganga? Hanging out with girls, not to do puja. It was just a, plain old romance between men and women, in Ganga. And Prabhupada's commentary on it is, you see, it's not that everyone gets purified by being in Ganga. Not my words. It's not enough to plant yourself in Vrindavan, let alone, I have heard the pastime just talk. Not enough. There has to be transformation. And so, there has to be a fundamental change. Fundamental, from the ground up. So, Asaji.
Thank you for a wonderful class, especially this part.
That's by your blessings that I saw it before.
I was thinking, you're talking about Svadharma, and our Svadharma, we're actually servants, right? I mean, either you serve your senses or your family, your country, you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
So I think Srila Prabhupada, he stuck to that principle.
That would be, that would not be Svadharma, that would be Dharma. That's the eternal Dharma of the soul that's present everywhere in whatever form of Svadharma we may have.
Yeah. So it seems to me like a lot of times Prabhupada would give these classes and he'd always revert to this servant of Krishna to awaken us, awaken your consciousness and who you really are.
Yeah.
And then his examples were so stark.
Yeah.
He'd tell you, you serve in your country, you serve your senses. And it just seemed like when you heard that, that was so foreign that it just awakened you. You just thought, that's true.
Yeah. There's a great lesson I learned from you. Reminded me a little bit of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, who would cry, and then when devotees would chant Hare Krishna, then he would stop crying like that. I remember when I came to New Dwarka, and I noticed how you wouldn't pay much attention to devotees who weren't serious about service. But the moment someone dedicated to service seriously, and especially if that devotee demonstrated that by prolonged dedication, oh man, you became like a father. So that's a good lesson. Good way of teaching also. Yeah, thank you. I'll take this opportunity to abuse you for just one more minute. I remember first time I met Briguji, I don't know if you remember, it wasn't in New Dwarka, it was up north somewhere, Seattle or Portland. I think so, yeah. And I thought I was a big shot, and at the time I distributed books for some years, and then I met Briguji, and then Brigu said how many years was he distributing books, and I just shrunk. I was like, oops. I mean, he started when I was born. Oh, Krishna. It's a pleasure to be amongst you. Thank you. Shall we end here? We're a bit over time. Is that okay? Okay. Krantarad Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki